In the opening scene, we see Tiffany packing up her stuff into boxes. She keeps some separate items that she doesn't want to open until after a decade. In the present, she writes down some lines when her parents call, reminding her to send them a copy of her trip itinerary and to check the tire pressure. Her dad has taken it upon himself to send her a copy of all the weather reports for each of the states along the way. However, she doesn't want them to get worked up over her trip because she has been planning for the trip for weeks. She informs them she'll be leaving the next day. Her mom asks if James, her childhood friend who is in the army, will be joining them for Christmas, so she'll have the guest room ready for him. Tiff is not certain because his tour keeps getting extended and they haven't spoken to each other for months. Her mom is disappointed because she loves having him celebrate with them during the holidays. Just then, her alarm rings and she bids her daughter goodbye so she can go check on her cookies. At the military camp, the soldiers are getting ready to move. James packs his bag, making his friend wonder if he'll be traveling to go see his family. However, he's actually planning to propose to his girlfriend. His friend is super happy for him as they bid each other Merry Christmas. James holds his discharge certificate from active duty, staring at it for a while before picking up his back. A knock comes in on Tiff's door, and as she moves around to go get it, James walks in. She can't contain her surprise at seeing him as she runs to hug him. She isn't expecting him for the holidays, and he reveals he just wants to see her. He has accomplished a lot in the last few years, and he's thinking about the next phase of his life as he intends to settle down. Tiff urges him to stop feeling nervous and reveal what he has to say. He finally reveals that he thinks he has found the woman of his dreams, and he mentions the name Ashley, a lady he met overseas, and her father is one of his commanding officers. Tiff gets up, she paces the room a little and asks how long they've known each other while trying to hide her surprise. They've known each other for 6 months, and that's why he has come to visit her, because he plans to propose at Christmas and he needs his grandmother's ring. He wonders if she still has it, and fortunately, she does. She tries discouraging him, claiming that it might be too soon for that. He explains that he wants to follow his family's history of proposing at Christmas. Then, his phone beeps and he needs to go back to base. He needs the ring so he can get going. However, the ring isn't at her house, it's back home and she kept it in a time capsule. He sits trying to ensure she understands what she is saying. He has to break it down by reminding her it's his family heirloom ring that he gave her to safeguard when he got enlisted. She quickly cuts in, telling him it's perfectly safe on a shelf in the basement. James gets an idea and suggests she call her mom and have her open it. Tiffany doesn't like the idea because she has some personal stuff in there, which she has waited 10 years for. Left with no other option, he accepts going on a road trip to go get the ring, because she hasn't gotten over her fear of flying. Later, James gets a call from Ashley, asking about his whereabouts, and he informs her he is caught up in a situation because he is planning a surprise. Just then, Tiff comes dragging the boxes of presents she bought into the car. He quickly brings his call to an end and assists her in packing the bags into the car as they set out for the trip. As they go on the trip, James seems to be in the mood to complain about everything. He turns off her holiday jam, and he also pulls out her ginger spice bag, which she hangs on the vehicle's rear mirror, stating it smells like an elf perished inside the vehicle. He asks that she plot the route, and she quickly brings out her map, showing him the route she intends to take throughout the 4-day trip. Upon seeing this, he complains again, because they would have to make so many stops. He thinks they would have to cut the stops and make the journey 3 days. Tiff suggests they play a road trip game. Although James seems uninterested, he decides to play along with her as they journey on. Suddenly, he tells her that he needs to focus on the road. He notices her downcast look and he apologizes to her. He reveals that he's just feeling guilty for not being completely honest with Ashley. Tiff thinks she must be special to him, seeing his reaction, and he goes on to explain how compassionate she is. She asks for her birthday or astrological sign. He isn't even sure of the date, but he is certain she was born on March. She then tries telling him that 6 months is too short to make such huge commitments to someone. He insists he doesn't want to wait forever. She asks what makes him think Ashley is the one for him. He responds that she just gets him, and the military life thing. Tiff decides to just let him be, since his statements aren't making sense to her. James then notices her sudden quietness, so he tries to get the game back on by singing, and he tells her to sing her turn. They stop at Tiff's chosen one-stop shop, a place which is among the top must-see holiday attractions, according to Sci-Fi Fanatics magazine. She warns him not to put her on the clock, since all she gets is one stop, stating she deserves to enjoy it. Then, she throws her Christmas cap at him. James can't believe she just threw an object at an officer in uniform. This cracks her up and she runs off laughing as he chases after her. After having so much fun at the various sections of the shop, the duo talks about how Christmas at military bases isn't very fun, but Ashley's family organizes something to make it a bit fun. He picks up some kind of couple's Christmas card and Tiff excuses herself to go look around. A woman dressed in a Santa costume walks towards him, asking for the fee and names he would like to have on the card. James initially mentions Tiffany, but immediately changes it to Ashley. Tiff puts on an alien band and asks James' opinion about it. During this, the lady walks in on them, smiling as she gives them a look, insinuating that they should kiss because of where they are standing on. Both of them chuckles while saying no. Tiff doesn't think there is mistletoe on other planets, and believes it's an archaic tradition that fails to take into consideration an important thing called consent, also pointing out they are just best friends. She laughs at them, revealing that a mistletoe isn't only for lovers, suggesting they just have a friendly consensual kiss, unless they want a year of cosmic bad luck. They agree that they do not want a year of bad luck, so Tiff gives him a peck on his cheeks. Almost immediately, a call comes in from Ashley. Answering it, James confesses that he's accompanying Tiff on a road trip and he will get back immediately when she gets home. After this, the two continue on their journey. Tiff takes the wheels while James is snoring loudly as he sleeps throughout the night. The next morning, James takes over the wheel. He asks about the time capsule. She describes it as a beautiful stainless steel case she put together before he was enlisted. He is curious about the other things in it, other than his ring. She reveals that it's her things that were important to her, because time capsules are a historic cache used as a method of communicating with future people. James thinks the idea is kind of cool. Tiff then calls her mom to inform her of the development with James and his proposal. Later, James suggests they stop for the night as they drive into a hotel. The hotel has just one room left for both of them, so they have no option other than to share a room for the night. He partitions the room so they can have some privacy. As Tiff paces about the room, she comes across James's discharge certificate. Later at night, the duo stay up chatting and Tiff informs him that she had seen his discharge letter. This makes him reveal that he resigned from active duty because he wants to take on civilian positions. This decision makes him feel like he might be letting a lot of people down, especially Ashley's father. Tiff apologizes for making him take a detour, knowing how badly he wants to get back to Ashley. He's glad they actually get to spend some time together before the next chapter of his life begins. Later at night, Tiff wakes up to James making noise while asleep. When he awakens from the nightmare, he tells her not to worry. She suggests they see a movie together. Early the next morning, James gets up, exercising in the room. They are a bit behind schedule, so they quickly resume their journey. On their drive, James suggests she move near her parents, since she misses them often, especially since she can do her job from anywhere. He also suggests she be his best man, or rather, best woman. His request startles Tiffany, causing her to drive off-road. They get out of the car, and James is just bothered about them already being behind schedule. Soon, they get into a little argument and Tiffany blames him for showing up, ruining her trip, and then asking her to stand beside him on his wedding day. They get their vehicle moving and in a few hours, they arrive at Tiffany's parents' home. They are excited to see James and he announces he's leaving as soon as possible. He asks Tiff to get him the ring. Upon getting to the basement, she realizes that her parents have made a lot of changes. To make matters worse, her mother has donated all her belongings to charity as she knows Tiffany might not need them again. Her mother thinks they were mostly a bunch of clothes that were out of style. Tiff is shocked and she asks for her time capsule. Unfortunately, her mom can't recall where she kept it, but promises to try and remember. Tiffany heaves a sigh of relief. James offers to join her mom to look for it, but she tells them that he and Tiffany would be the only ones searching for it now, because she has to go on a walk with her husband. The two friends start searching and Tiff sees a card from his 9th birthday party, the one her parents threw for James. They chat about it as it reminds them of the events of that day. They continue their search when James comes across her acceptance letter into Nation York, almost right after his grandma's demise. He gets so emotional upon realizing she missed that, just so she could stay behind for him. She reveals that at that point it didn't matter, because she couldn't have left him during a painful time in his life. The search continues late into the night, preventing him from taking a flight back that night, so he has to spend the night over. Ashley calls to ask what's going on and why he isn't back yet. He reveals that he got stuck with Tiffany's parents because they're like family to him. He goes to his friend's house to spend the night and they talk about the transitions in their lives upon quitting active duty. James has a military degree, so he could use his advice on what to focus on after quitting active service. His friend informs him of the opening for a historian at their museum, so he could put in a good word for him if he applies. He appreciates him, although he is not sure if Ashley will want to move down to the Midwest. Tiff's dad sneaks into the kitchen at night to have some snacks. Tiff walks in, startling him, and she asks him to bribe her if he wants her silence. He hands her some, and as they enjoy the treat, her dad starts telling her of how her mother and him met some years back, when they used to live in the same apartment building. He also mentions them decorating the courtyard Christmas tree, and her mom appeared with a box of garland. He remembers she was wearing a beautiful red scarf with a matching hat and gloves. He tried talking to her, but she was so shy. Tiff doesn't believe her mom was ever shy, and he reveals she wasn't always so feisty either. He continues telling her his story, saying as soon as the tree was lit up, her mom was nowhere to be found, but he found one of her gloves in the snow. So he went and knocked on every apartment in the building, until he found hers, and she invited him to taste her holiday baking. Ever since then, he has been her official tester. Tiff loves the story, but that's not the end. At their wedding, her mom admitted to purposely dropping her glove on the snow, because she felt their connection and she knew he would come find her. Her dad likened the situation to the same way James left his ring with her, because he knew he'd have to come back to her to get it, before he marries anyone else. He bids her goodnight, leaving her to ponder on what he just said to her. The next morning, James goes jogging. At Tiffany's parents' house, she greets her mom, who wishes her a happy Christmas Eve while she's busy mixing her pastries. She reveals that she has searched the new storage area, her bedroom, and the shed, and she didn't find it. She thinks she would have an idea where she could find it. This situation saddens her because she thinks if she misplaces his grandmother's ring, he may never speak to her again, and she wouldn't blame him either. Her mom urges her to confess how she feels about him because she can see that her relationship with him goes beyond friendship from the way she looks at him. It also reflects how she had made important life decisions based on him. She confesses she can't just tell her best friend of 20 years how she feels about him for fear of losing him. She worries that he doesn't feel the same way towards her. She adds how it's too late now. Regardless, her mom believes she will never know until she tells him. Later, James walks in saying hello to Tiff's mom. He asks for Tiff and she tells him she's in the guest room searching for the ring. She reminds him that his grandma was a great baker, so he should give her a hand as it must have rubbed off on him. She throws an apron over to him. Upon opening it, he surprisingly finds his name written on it. He smiles, seeing that she had kept his apron all those years. Upon bringing out their already baked snack, Tiff walks in. She and James try out the snack and Mrs. Elise looks at them tensely, waiting to get their review on it. They think it tastes surprisingly good, compared to her other sugarless pastries. Tiff apologizes for being unable to find the ring. Just then, her mom calls them to come to watch the race, and as soon as it's done, they'll get back to finding the ring. James accepts, but he insists he has to be on the plane by nighttime. Later, Tiff and James smile while watching her parents acting all loved up with each other. Tiff mentions that she has something to say and he thinks it's about the time capsule. She tries confessing her feelings for him. Unfortunately, the loud sound from a toy horn prevents James from hearing her, so she just dismisses the conversation. James surprisingly sees Ashley, waving and walking towards them. He runs to meet her. She has come to surprise him, pointing out how it doesn't matter where they spent the holidays, as long as they are together. Tiffany walks up to them and they get to meet each other for the first time. Ashley invites Tiff to come shop with her for some warm clothes, as she didn't come prepared for the weather. Ashley walks with Tiff, taking this as an opportunity for her to properly know her. James calls her out for running off despite wanting to spend Christmas Eve with him. She assures him there's plenty of time to do it, especially since she made some restaurant reservations. Tiff tells her they can't have dinner at the restaurant, so Ashley excitedly says they would love to have dinner with her family instead, looking at James for support. He agrees with her before they go shopping. In the next scene, James explains the situation to his friend. His friend doesn't see the complications since he is just friends with Tiffany. Then, James confesses to having feelings for Tiffany for a long time, which he has tried to suppress because they weren't reciprocated. But he also mentions how at the charity ground earlier, he felt a spark. This makes his friend curious about Ashley. James admits his life with Ashley makes sense, because she understands his life as a military personnel. His friend advises him that just because Tiffany doesn't have a military background, it doesn't mean she can't empathize with him and what he will go through. He reveals how lots of military men get worried over the transition to a civilian lifestyle. They fear losing both the family and the camaraderie. James asks if his friend thinks he wants to marry Ashley as some sort of safety net, and he simply tells him that he will be alone in whatever he decides. So he advises him to properly think it through before rushing to propose. James thinks he has a point, so he gives the whole proposal thing a thought. Meanwhile, the ladies walk into a shop and Ashley places an order for 2 peppermint mochas. Tiff tells her in an almost whisper that James doesn't like peppermint and caffeine makes him jittery. Ashley wonders how she knows so much about him, with a hint of jealousy in her eyes. Tiff accidentally hints that James plans to propose, and she realizes Ashley has no idea about it. She sees James coming and she excuses herself, walking away as fast as she can, feeling a mixture of jealousy and sadness. James runs after her to tell her it's fine if she doesn't find the ring, because as she rightly said, it's too early to propose, especially since what Ashley wants is for him to spend the holidays with her family. Tiff apologizes to him for accidentally saying something about a wedding. He gets frustrated finding out that Ashley now has a hint of a proposal he doesn't intend to do anymore. He heads back to meet Ashley, apologizing for making her miss the time she could spend with her family. She tries to make him understand she won't pressure or bug him anymore about what he has been up to. She smiles, feeling relieved to know he's not there because he isn't to Tiffany, but rather because he was planning to propose to her. James understands what she's getting at. He smiles and offers to show her around. Tiffany walks into her parents' house, panting. She calls out to her mom, informing her of Ashley's sudden presence, and how she invited herself to dinner at their place, which means she has to find the ring as soon as she can. Her mother gets so concerned because she knows her daughter is hurting after seeing James with another woman. She urges Tiff to stay calm and have a seat, while she walks back from the room, handing her the time capsule. Tiffany is surprised to know that her mom knew where the time capsule was the whole time. The saddened mother reveals she doesn't want her daughter to lose the love of her life. She explains the reason why she had been baking without sugar is because of her dad's pre-diabetic condition. Tiff is shocked to find out her dad is ill, but then she doesn't think it is in any way related to her and James' situation. In the next scene, everyone is sitting at the dining table with Ashley present and she sits beside James. Tiff feels awkward sitting with James and Ashley at the same table. Her parents ask Ashley how they met. Meanwhile, James and Tiffany are busy texting each other from their phones. Tiff hands the ring to James, who steps out to meet her outside, apologizing for taking too long to find it. He asks for her opinion about Ashley, but Tiffany hides her feelings. She reminds him that he doesn't need her permission to carry on his relationship to the next level. But then James reveals he is no longer certain he's making the right decision. The tension between them is heavy and palpable, but there seems to be nothing they can do at the moment. Later at night, Tiffany reads a letter from James that they had kept in the time capsule for years. In the letter, he confesses his love for her, saying she has always been the one for him. So if she feels the same way, she should let him know, one way or the other. As she reads the letter, her heart thumps, seeing a ray of hope of them being together. She rushes out of her room in search of him and they bump into each other by the door. She reveals her actual feelings for him. He looks perplexed, wondering why she is only saying it now, when he is about to move on with someone else. Then she reminds him that back then he told her to wait to read it. James finds it hard to control his emotions and he blames her for reading it after 10 years, rather than when he left the room years ago. He thinks it's just too late, since he is with Ashley now, leaving her standing there in disappointment. The next day, James asks Ashley why she loves him, but she goes mute. He hands her his discharge certificate. She is surprised and disappointed in his decision because she has a different life planned out, and being in the service doesn't stop him from raising a family. She thinks they might after all be rushing things a little. Ashley also mentions that she can't compete with Tiffany, who is a perfect match for him, and she wouldn't want to stand in the way of their love. So, if Tiffany and life in the Midwest makes him happy, she thinks he should do what makes him happy. They part ways amicably as friends, with no reserved resentments. Later, James sits in his room staring at the stuff he had written his and Ashley's names on during his journey to the Midwest, thinking deeply about his next move. He visits his friend to inform him of the development. Tiffany walks down to one of her favorite spots and she sees a table for two already set. James walks up to her and confesses his feelings for her. He tells her all the reasons why he loves her, and he does so without missing a beat. This is very different compared to when he was grasping for reasons why he loved his ex. Tiffany gazes at him with so much affection in her eyes. He raises his eyes to show her the mistletoe he fixed there earlier, while seeking her permission to kiss her. She smiles and moves close to kiss him. He pulls out the ring from his pocket, asking her to allow him to keep her safe for a lifetime, the same way she had kept the ring safe for a decade. She smiles, handing him her finger, as another bout of kisses begins, in the warm embrace of James's arms.